𝗬𝗏 on mainland 98.3 FM from 4 to 5 p.m. weekdays. God bless Nigeria.
Dear Nigerians, I am Peter.
The last time the Super Eagles of Nigeria got to this point of AFCON, unfortunately ended in glory 2013 at the First National Bank Stadium in South Africa. Nigeria defeated Burkina Faso 1-0. A magnificent goal scored on a Sunday by a Nigerian-based footballer, 𝗪𝗏 yesterday. History almost repeated itself. I remember we also played Burkina Faso in 2013 at the group stage, the same way we played Ivory Coast this time around at the group stage. Unfortunately, the Super Eagles of Nigeria will not be winning their fourth African Cup of Nations title. So you mean all three for Ivory Coast and 3 for Nigeria yesterday. But we'll move on. I will get the job done. You're welcome to the Situation Room, live on mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. It's an amazing time to be on radio, and I want to trust your weekend was good. Well, if you're a Nigerian, a patriotic Nigerian, so I can tell you for a fact that the weekend may not be so good. I mean, it wasn't one of the best of our performances, but we certainly did it. I would value the silver medal, and then we hope that things would only get better. And I want to use this medium to reach out to everyone out there that is so particular with bullying people on social media. 𝗪𝗏𝗁 had been criticized severally for probably just getting into the team because he's related to the legendary Austin J.J. Okocha. Well, he's responded on social media, deleted all of his social media handles because of the hate comments he's been receiving since yesterday. My name is 𝗪𝗏𝗁 𝗪𝗏𝗁. By 6 o'clock, you get a lot of that on Sport Cruise on mainland 98.3 FM. Wale Adigun and myself would come around to take you through the world of sports. But this time around, we're discussing politics. And we're going to be focusing on the student loan conversation today. The presidency released a statement that it was going to kick off in January. Well, if you check your date, today should be about the 12th day of February 2024. And the student loan hadn't taken off. But before we get into the conversation, I'm going to be sliding a bit into the academia today. I would get someone within the academia, a former acting head of department of a department in the State University. When we get into that conversation, we'll open it up. But I would play you something from Comrade Joe Ajaero, the national president of the Nigerian Labour Congress. He's talking about the minimum wage. He's talking about 1 million naira because of the reality of the economy. I take a listen to the national president of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Comrade Joe Ajaero. And the last time we heard from him was a few days or weeks to the Imo State, off-cycle governorship election. All of the drama that followed suit, and he's back in the news and he's talking tough. I will play you that insert, and when I come back, I'll be linking up with Dr. Oladipupo. He's going to take us through the whole IPPS conversation, the student loan, and how workable will that scheme be in the reality of the economy that we are facing. You're live from mainland 98.3 FM. This program comes up on the airwaves every Mondays to Fridays from 4 to 5:30 p.m. And then we get to talk about politics, policies, governance, leadership, and as we constantly place demands on our leaders when it comes to the dividends of democracy. My name is 𝗪𝗏𝗁 𝗪𝗏𝗁. The next voice you would hear is that of Comrade Joe Ajaero, the national president of the Nigerian Labour Congress, talking about the minimum wage. And I will come back. We'll get into the crux of the conversation. Don't go nowhere.
You're listening to Mainland 98.3 FM.
This 1 million naira may be relevant if the value of the Nigeria continues to depreciate. And we need to, if the inflation continues to depreciate, if it is not checked. Because the demand, of labor is equally dependent on what is happening in the society. You remember that by the time we are contemplating 200,000, the exchange rate was at about 800, 900. As we talk today, the exchange rate is about 1,400 or even more. Now, those are the issues that determine the demand, and it is equally affecting the cost of living. And we had always said it that our demand will be based on cost of living index. You agree with me that today, even a bag of rice is going for about 60,000-70,000 naira or more. A bag of even corn, locally produced corn, is about 56 or more. On and on, food stuff is getting out of reach. Now, are we going to get a minimum wage that will not, be enough for transportation even for 1 week? We have to factor in all these issues, and that will determine the federal government's commitment to this negotiation. It's not just that they want to give us minimum wage. The old minimum wage will be expiring by April, and ordinarily the federal government ought to have set up the committee 6 months before that time, so that negotiation would have commenced. But up to now, the federal government didn't do it until they inaugurated the committee, and the committee have not sat. So it appears we are going to work within 1 month or two to agree on a figure. And I doubt how those ones are going to, especially when you look at the people that the federal government assembled, as members of the committee. They looked at some of the governors that are not paying even the existing minimum wage. And even they have a minister of budget, who didn't implement his minimum wage as a governor. Now, if you have these people in the government team, on the issue of minimum wage, some of us are not seeing a bright future on the work of this new minimum wage committee.
Hello, my name is Godwin Enoch, and I'm a broadcast journalist and a sport administrator. I want you to listen to Situation Room with Oᴘᴇyẹmí Akínyẹ̀dé on mainland 98.3 FM from 4 to 5 p.m. weekdays. God bless Nigeria.
Okay, I will get straight into the crux of the conversation. I already have Dr. Layi Oladipupo joining me via phone. He's the acting director, student support services from ADEKUNLE AJASIN University, AKUNGBA, AKOKO in Ondo State. We're going to get into all of these conversations on the show today. But I'm sure you listen to the voice of the national president of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Comrade Joe Ajaero, talking about the committee that would look into the minimum wage, the harmonization of the minimum wage, as was set up 2 weeks ago by the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. There's been a lot of conversation about it. Should it be minimum wage? Should it be living wage? And in the face of the reality that we're dealing with right now, how valid is the conversation around minimum wage? 30,000 naira is where we are right now, and some states are still badly struggling to implement even the 30,000 naira that is being paid as minimum wage. And then you ask yourself again, how well can we sustain all of this? I will look at that, but we'll focus more on the issue of the student loan that was supposed to kick off last month, which was January, according to the presidency. Yes, it was supposed to kick off last month. So let's get straight up into it. Dr. Layi Oladipupo, good evening. Thank you for joining us live in the Situation Room in the city of Lagos.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
Okay. First off, I follow you on social media, and I see that you really have some passion for sport, football generally. Aside the fact that you're a Chelsea fan, you're also a huge follower of the Super Eagles of Nigeria. What were your expectations yesterday with the finals and losing it? How did it make you feel?
Well, I felt bad. I have to be fair. because I was already at the horror of the fact that this cup is coming to Nigeria. I'm not going to the fact that yesterday made it 11 years that we need the AFCON Cup in South Africa. I was thinking that being 11 again, maybe the god of soccer will be by our side and so that we have the cup. But it's not the winner. What do we do? But as a Nigerian, I was scared because I have to run my generator. About every other thing that I have to do just to watch that match. But if you want to win it, what do you do? It's one of these things.
Exactly, Doctor. Well, I think the most painful part is the fact that you had to run your generator. I saw a tweet before the game started yesterday, and someone was asking the Minister of Power, that's Honorable Adekunle, and someone was asking like, oh, is he going to be watching the match with NEPA, PAC and supply, or is he going to be watching with generator? I cannot tell you for a fact, apart from the games I probably get to see while at the office throughout the AFCON, I'm not sure I watched a single game. Whether Nigeria, of course, because of what we do, you have to follow as many games as you can. I'm not sure I watched a single of those games with, our electricity supply. It had to be on fuel, but it's okay. We'll move on, and we'll have World Cup qualifiers to deal with. Hopefully, we get to escape that. Dr. Layi, thank you very much. I decided to go into the academia. The same thing I did last week, Monday, where I went into University of Lagos, because I feel as a space that is supposed to be the ivory of, the base of quality conversation within the society is supposed to be the ivory tower of wisdom, where you get to not just analyze problems but get solutions to some of these problems. That's why I decided to bring you in today. Let's talk about the student loan first. We'll talk about the student loan, we'll talk about the IPPIS, we'll talk about the ASUU conversation again, and then we'll talk about the minimum wage conversation. Going to be a certain amount of money, I think about 50 billion was added to what was on ground, and the message was clear. The modalities will be handled by ASUU at the university level, university management rather. Then the kickoff will start last month, but you're a very active member of the local chapter of ASUU in your school. And what exactly is the situation of things? Are you getting any information whatsoever from university management in respect to the student loan?
Well, thank you for this question. And just like you can read through the newspaper, that the implementation of the policy has yet to start. And they are still postponing it, and it will get started sometime in the nearest future. But for now, there is not much about it at our end here. There's not much about it. It has not started, and we've not heard anything about it.
Okay. Are there modalities already put in place? I know for one that even beyond information that comes from the university management, I'm sure at the level of ASUU, conversation around that will have been coming up at different times. Are you aware of any modalities whatsoever that is being put in place in terms of application from students, or in terms of data being gathered for the university that would consider which of the students are qualified to apply for these loans when it eventually starts?
Well, for me, that will be an exercise in futility, because at the end of the day, you just discover that you will just raise people's hope unnecessarily, and at the end of the day, their hope will be dashed. When the functionality of the exercise is yet to be put in place, and you are collecting paper, for me, it will make no sense. But as we speak now, nothing of such has started in my own end here. In our own university, nothing of such has started. And I want to tell you that by the time the federal government is serious about the whole thing, and it gets down to my university, be rest assured that our management and even the ASUU will do their best to see that the right thing is being done. Let me quickly mention to you that just of recent, the ASUU branch of my own, the branch of my own ASUU here, only awarded two indigent students, scholarship to the tune of 200,000 naira each. And two of the students who won the competition were given this check sometime late last year. So that's ASUU for you. And don't forget that this loan of a thing, ASUU is asking questions even about it. But that is talk for another day, or perhaps if you have another question that has to do with that.
Yes, we'll talk about the functionality of the loan, and then how, because one of the things that the president said when he signed into law the student loan, that's access to higher education bill, when he signed it into law on the 12th of June, one of the things the president said was that he's going to put an end to industrial actions in the country's tertiary institution. And when we talk about industrial actions, it has to come from ASUU, that's in the case of polytechnics, and there's also going to be those sister affiliate bodies that comes with welfareism, issue when it comes to the welfare level of the lecturers. Was ASUU at any point carried along in the scheme of things when this whole student loan conversation came up?
Well, just like any other Nigerian heard about it, it was the same way I want to believe ASUU heard about it. But you may want to ask yourself, where is the logic? Now, it's very simple. If you are giving students loan and you are claiming that will mitigate
industrial actions,
strike action in the university, you ask yourself a question: as the demand of ASUU, as the demand of both the academic, both the teaching and non-teaching staff, be met? Yes, agree. Part of why ASUU go on strike is the fact that the students are not well catered for. There's no infrastructure, there is decadency here and there. Students who will enjoy if the needful is being done. But the question we need to ask ourselves is that if you are giving student loan and the teachers, the researchers who educate the students are not getting their pay, do you think that will stop industrial action? And there is no logic there. If they are thinking that by the time loan are issued out to students, that will mitigate student industrial action by the teaching and non-teaching staff, they may be far from reality. We may be far from reality.
Okay. Now let's talk about ASUU itself.
Yeah.
One of the things that ASUU has been known for over time has been his ability, to push for agendas when it comes to the continuous existence of public universities in Nigeria, whether at the state or at the federal level. You look at how expensive education is right now, and then you look at all of this strike. In 2022, ASUU was on strike for almost a whole year, specifically from the 14th of February till October, if I'm not mistaken. And then you look at some of these issues as well. Let's talk about ASUU as an agency. Has it over time lost its credibility? Because I've been in a short period of time, I've been able to relate with members of ASUU. You also look at students alike. It looks like the students are just looking for the next ASUU strike to go home, and whatever it is they can find themselves to do it. Do you think ASUU still holds that power when it comes to negotiating with the government? There's been, agreement that have been reached in 2009. There's been that of 2013 February. There's been that of October 2022, and we're still here. ASUU still making demands. Do you think ASUU still holds that ace when it comes to negotiating for the welfare of its members?
Yeah, ASUU still hold the power. They still hold the strength. And that's why government keep on appealing all the time. And they are looking for every possible means. But most of the strike embarked on by ASUU were not for ASUU's sake, were for the development of the nation. And that's exactly what our leaders are trying to do. But ASUU is not like that. And that's why you see today we first push ASUU to a level now that ASUU have come to realize that majority of our leaders, so to say, do not even appreciate what ASUU is doing and push ASUU to do, because all the antics of government happen before now. Even during the last will be sensitive enough not to push ASUU to the wall to the extent of declaring another strike.
Fight, the grass would always suffer. I knew a lot of people that couldn't go back to school after the very much protracted long. As a lot of people obviously felt the fact that the federal government has released Nigeria ASUU had always stuck on ground and not just run around with audio projects. About a year ago, I heard was that the federal government always find a way to get into the ranks of ASUU when it comes to negotiation. Now that the government has set able welfareism, quality services in a room capacity of just
well, at least with this, if it's materialized, well, there's a difference between the executive secretary of 𝗪𝐶 saying that so amount have been released, and it's another thing for you to get to the right place. You know, this Nigeria. Intervention are properly handled, and the needful is done. We cannot continue to count money on the surface on the paper. We cannot continue to count money. I want to believe that money going to our university, and with the fact that the ASUU has agitated and has made sure that a committee is put in place, which is monitoring committee on need assessment and third fund, whatever. Those teams, majority of people, at least ASUU has a representative in that committee, and by the time this thing comes to the university, ASUU will equally have their ear and their eyes there to serve as their eyes, so that at the end of the day they would know whether the right thing is being done or not. And perhaps if that huge amount of money is released and is used judiciously, you should know that it will go a long way to mitigate this infrastructural decay in our university. And when life is made meaningful for students, what will equally be good? Because just like you mentioned, you get to some of our universities these days, you discover that a class that needs not to take more than 50 students, we have over 250 students there. Over private students sitting on the floor, university students, is an eyesore. I want to believe with time we'll get over it. If and only if the parents, the students themselves could think and see the fact that ASUU is not fighting their own cause, but rather they are fighting a just cause for the Nigerian students as well for the parents, so that at the end of the day we all laugh.
Okay. Dr. Oladipupo, you're the acting director of Student Support Services, and I'm sure that one of the things you do in that space is finding ways to make sure that maybe some students are working and they are earning at the same time as they are schooling. I think that's a scheme that ADEKUNLE University have been able to put in place over time. But with the coming on board of the student loan, how optimistic do you think it will be in terms of making education available? The other side of that question could a bit unsettle you, and this is what I mean. A lot of people have fears that the moment the student loan is being approved, once it kicks off and loans is being disbursed to the beneficiaries, the cost of education will also rise, and there are conditions attached to having access to these loans. Now, let's go back to the first part of the question. How optimistic do you think the whole student loan thing, when it eventually kicks off, would put some direction to the quality of education that you can get in the public universities in Nigeria?
Yes. You see, the problem we have in Nigeria is that we just jump at policy without examining it. And the challenge we have is that some of us, some Nigerians, take delight in propaganda. You are talking about student loan. Look at the criteria attached to it. Anybody that is or a parent is earning 500,000 per annum is not entitled to it. Student loan. Why thinking of student loan when the social welfare scheme that need to be put in place are not here? Why don't the government of the day think of palliative like scholarship, like giving grants to students instead of student loan? It's more or less like advanced slavery. When you give a student loan today and student apply for that loan, perhaps let's assume that student gets it. After he graduates, is it the country where we have millions of graduates without job? Where are they going to repay that loan? Is it not another means to siphon our money or to make some people to be more richer? You see so many cases in our country where loans are rolled out. how many of those loans were repaid? For me, I think the government of the day should think outside the box. We are not here for this idea of loan of 18. Instead of this loan, government should think of probably thinking of how they can give students scholarship and how they can roll out real scholarship, how they can give students some other motivation that will mitigate their pain in the university or while they are passing, they are having their tertiary education process.
Okay, now let's talk about the other one. One of the fears that is being brought on board is that there are conditions attached to assessing the loans. You gave a few of them, and a lot of people, I think a group of lawyers at some point even threatened to sue the federal government that the conditions attached to the student loan is quite discriminatory. We'll come talk about that much later. But Dr. Oladipupo, a lot of people are raising concerns that the moment the student loan scheme kicks off, there's going to be increase in the cost of education in Nigeria. So if I apply for a loan and I have access to that loan, the quality of education, or let me say the increment, may not affect me per se. But what about the people that do not qualify or do not meet those requirements to assessing those loans? It's not like I'm going to be paying more because I collect loans and there's someone that does not qualify for the loan will pay less. Is this a fear that Nigerians should nurse, or you feel some of these things have been taken care of? Are we most likely going to experience increment in the cost of education the moment the student loan kicks off?
We should think in that direction. We should think in that direction. But that still is another fundamental issue. You are talking about loan. You are giving loans out, and you have some criteria attached to that loan. Where is equity? Where is justice? Where is fairness there? Are all students not Nigerians? No, let's ask ourselves that question. Are all students not Nigerian? Or is it the case that there are some Nigeria that are much more qualified than the other for such? Because it's coming from the government and they are all students. So if there's any criteria that is going to be used at all, so that there will be justice, equity, and fairness, it should be that the moment you are admitted into university, whether your parents earn millions of thousands or millions of trillions per annum, you should be qualified to access that loan. But you should know, Nigeria is a country whereby it is only the son of Mr. Somebody that knows somebody that gets something. Until we get to that level, that there's a level playground for everybody to access the loan, for me, is amount to deception. At the end of the day, you discover the legislative arm of government where they are raising issue, they are sharing things among themselves, among their relatives. Who does that? Who does that? If government wants to give loan, it must be open to all. The moment you have your admission letter and your institution can testify that you are a bona fide student of that institution, you should be able to access the loan if the loan is really not the fear. By the time this loan starts, government will not be thinking of tuition free, whatever. No, we don't have tuition free ab initio. But the little subsidy that is on education will be removed. Will be removed. Don't forget of recent Federal University of Technology, Akure, you know their students went on rampage because of increment in tuition fee. The same thing happened in UNILAG. The same thing happened in AAU. And by the time this thing comes full blown, who tells you that tuition fee will not be hiked? And it will be then that both the parents and the students will now see what ASUU is saying.
Dr. Oladipupo, now my biggest fear again is this. When the student loan idea was brought on board, a lot of people appreciated it. I saw a lot of write-ups. I saw a lot of opinions about it. You know, people bringing in other countries. Oh, it worked in this country, it's working in this country, it's working in that country. One of the bigger problems we have in this part of the world is quality database. And it sometimes affects the inability of some of the NSIPs, the intervention programs that we do to function. For instance, you do the 𝗪𝗪 project. A lot of people are benefiting from 3 different parts of those same scheme. You do the conditional cash transfer, you do the anchor borrowers. Some of the people that get this money, we don't particularly even go back to them to ask, oh, the loans you were given, are you paying back? Or did you use it for the agro business you applied for? You look at some of these issues. What is ASUU doing in collaborating with the university's management board in terms of having a proper database to make sure that the student loan thing kicks off and the people that truly deserve it are the ones that are really getting these loans? What is ASUU doing anything in that regards?
Well, you will recall that ASUU is not even key to this whole idea of student loan, because for ASUU, it's more or less like another means of making life difficult for Nigerian students and even for Nigerian parents. So for now, I wouldn't say much about that until it gets started. Because it will just amount to us building our house on a castle when the whole issue is not there. I don't know how you get it.
I'm with you.
So as we still working patiently, as we learning his voice to it, that instead of student loan, why can't we think of like giving grants to students? If you give student loan now, at the end of the day, how many Nigerians have paid back their loan? Such a loan that come on from federal government. If someone is giving student loan now, at the end of the day, he finishes his education, and to that just what will happen? Do we have the mechanism that will check all those things? Won't it be another exercise in futility? Won't it be another waste? You make a mention of this what do we call it now? 𝗪𝗪. How many people are given money for 𝗪𝗪 that they are doing what they say they want to do with the money? Who is asking questions? So these are the issues. It's not about doling out loans, it's not about giving out palliative to people, but it's about monitoring and be sure that those things goes for what they are meant for.
Okay, now, if I pick from the few positions you've taken, Dr. Oladipupo, it's very clear that you don't exactly share so much optimism about the effectiveness of the student loan. We cannot deny the fact that we have data challenges in this country. Most times, our problems is not really about the policies. Often, it is the implementation of those policies, especially when it falls into the wrong hands. What would you advise the government to do in terms of, I mean, you've been talking about maybe grants, maybe scholarships and all of that. What would you think the government should do? One of the authorities that have spoken on this issue of the student loan is the former dean of Department of Adult Education, Lagos State University. And one of the things he said was that the government can actually go back and find a way to restructure the pattern of this loan. In your own observation, if you share so much fear that the student loan thing may not particularly work, what would you advise the government to do on this one?
Honestly, for me, as a person talking now as Layi Oladipupo, I would advise the government of the day that this idea of loan, instead of doling out loan, why can't they think about putting in place a conducive environment for learning, making life more bearable for students? While we are still growing up, I had an uncle who school in 𝗪𝗪𝗁 University. Part of what he used to tell me is that the moment he gets to school, he go to class, from class he go back to the canteen for his break, for his lunch, for his dinner. But these days you get to the institution, you see students renting apartments outside the campus. The students should make life conducive for the government instead of doling out loan that will end up in the hand of very few the government should use that money to put in place the needed infrastructure. In a school whereby we have 12 students in a class, and they are being accommodated for lecture in a lecture theatre that cannot contain 50 students. What stops government from using that money to build a full and well ventilated lecture theatres, so that everybody, every student will benefit from it? Because let me tell you, whether you like it or not, at the end of the day, this loan, if it sees the light of the day, will still end up in the hand of the very few that may not even need the money in the first instance, that may not need the loan in the first instance, but they get the loan because they know it's true. And those that actually need the loan will not be able to access it because they don't know those that are in power. So instead of rolling out all this, just like empower that people are getting this money and nothing is getting out of it, they should use that money judiciously and make life meaningful across board for all students.
Dr. Layi, the last we're going to have on this student loan is this. I would read out the requirement, the eligibility requirement for this student loan, and then we look at it if it's truly workable. Now, to be eligible for the loan, an applicant's income or family income must be less than 500,000 per year. So,
You can imagine.
student must provide at least 2 guarantors who meets the following criteria. 1, a civil servant of at least level 12. A lawyer with at least 10 years post call to bar experience. That means a lawyer that must have been practicing for nothing less than 10 years. A judicial officer, a justice of peace. Now, you look at some of these requirements. Do you see it being applicable